here. So we're going to keep moving along here through the recruiting process to talk real quick about exposure and events. So, from our perspective, we get emails and we're inundated with, hey, send your daughter, your daughters or your players to this event, that event. We're kind of constantly getting, asked, and sent information on a lot of different events that are out there. And, I'm talking more privately, things away from, information that schools are sending about prospect days and camps, which are great. But in terms of the events that you go to, it's most important that you go to quality events over going to as many events as possible throughout the year. And if you're not really sure what type of event it is, or if you've never heard of it, or there's not enough information on the website, it's really important that you reach out to us so that way we can get that information. And just keep in mind, like, if you can't get quality details from an event by either calling them or sending an email, then that's probably a little bit of a red flag right there. You should be able to contact a event director or manager, and they should be able to get you some accurate information pretty quickly. Now, prospect days and camps, we aren't going to dive too much into those, but there's a lot of positives with those, and I think it's a great way to get on campuses and allow coaches to see you. Like Coach Cooke said earlier, like, if he doesn't have an opportunity, maybe go watch you play in the spring. It really helps him out if you can actually go to our campus and attend one of their camps or clinics and get coached up by the coaches as well. So that's, there's definitely a lot of positives there. With that said, whether you're going to a prospect day at camp or if you're playing in a team event or an individual showcase, it's really important that you play the right way. And Bob and I and the FLG staff are constantly blogging on our website, and we actually just put an article about what it means to play the right way. And we actually broke down each position with how you can, at an individual showcase, kind of still play the right way, which we understand can be hard. There's definitely some obstacles when there's individual play involved. But keep that in the back of your mind as you move through the recruiting process and attend some of these events. So we're going to specifically ask some of our coaches questions as it pertains to exposure and events. And I guess we'll start here at TK in regards to recruiting classes. Just kind of give a little background as to kind of who you're recruiting right now and the type of ages that you're going after.
I don't know if you want to know this answer. We are actively recruiting 2020s and 2019s, but I have spots open for the 18s, 17s as well, and potential transfers for this current semester that started today. So I think it's a little unique because we came on board, just this September. But I also always, in every class, I don't rush it, and I always keep spots open for, players. I love athletes, so players that are playing other sports and just as big of a commitment to a basketball program or a soccer program, but also love the game of lacrosse and want to play that in college at some point. I'm 100% in support of that, so I leave a couple of spots left over in every class just in case those kids fall through the cracks.
Sure. Coach Lee, are you recruiting the same age group?
No, we are not. Well, we are looking at 18s. I'll say that's our primary focus right now. And though we've attended showcases and tournaments, and our own clinic is open to 2019s as well, we're still kind of keeping our eye on the 2018 class and kind of starting that introductory process with the 2019s. But that's probably as far as we'll go. We're kind of handcuffed by the NESCAC rule of July 1st, where we're not able to get academic reads on kids until the end of their junior year of July 1st, which is kind of the reason why it's pumped the brakes on our recruiting, which is awesome. So you're really taking the time to get to know the kids throughout the year, and we probably try to watch each player play at least 5 to 6 times before we can give them some formal feedback.
Great. And yeah, that's one thing we wanted to cover is how many times you want to actually see a player live before you maybe pull the trigger. So I would love to hear from Coach Cooke and also Coach T on that as well, TK on that, in regards to watching players play live.
Well, I mean, first impressions are always good. I mean, I think one of the questions that was posed earlier was, when would you start recruiting the kid? And for us, even after the first tournament, we would start contact with that individual. But as Alice said, I mean, for us, we would like to see kids play, at least 2 or 3 times if it's possible. But again, that's kind of where that film also can play a role. Where, if we've got 1 or 2 games on our belt and we see some film that kind of establishes what our thought process is, then I think we'll be just fine. But again, I don't know that there's any one magic number for us. There really isn't. I mean, again, a kid can play in 1 game and just be the most impressive kid in the world, and if they might not have another game like that in the same tournament, but that that's the type of player that they could be, then again, we might still take a chance on it, unless everything they're showing us in that first game is just totally off the wall. They don't show us anything whatsoever, in those games 2 or 3. So, but for the most part, again, I've been doing this a long time. I don't think I've ever seen that happen.
How much value do you put on the athlete you're trying to recruit or look at, like who they're playing in the competition level? Is that something that you guys look at pretty seriously, or is it not as much a factor?
Anytime that you can watch 2 club teams that are equally matched and you can find that athlete in there, that's ideal. And sure, and I think any coach will probably attest to it. That's sometimes why you might go watch them play, a second and third time. That if you're watching a girl play in the midfield and their team never loses a draw and they're always constantly in the offensive end, well, now we don't get a good chance to see what she does defensively. So yeah, we're going to have to go back and reevaluate that aspect of her game.
Sure. TK, you want to touch on maybe how often you want to watch some of your recruits before you pull the trigger?
Sure. I always want to know the players that I'm considering prior to making any, move on them in terms of interest. I never want to lead on a player. I definitely always want to make sure that we're ready if they're ready to make, a visit or to, continue the recruiting process. But we usually, I do feel like we are in an advantage in terms of the amount of staff we're allowed and that we're allotted. So we try to get as many looks as possible, but I think it really does matter what type of competition, like Coach Cooke was saying. You might not see them play a ton, or you might see a ton of play depending on the opponent, but I also like watching high school games. I think after seeing them in club and then watching them in high school, it just gives you a little more about them, and then you get that full picture of what they can do and who they are as an athlete.
Great. And in touching on high school games and these athletes who are in high school currently, it's a big kind of debate now. Should my son or daughter play multiple sports, or should they specialize in one sport? What are your guys' thoughts on 3-sport athletes today? Is it helping someone who maybe wants to pursue the dream of playing college lacrosse, or do you think it's maybe hurting them because they're missing opportunities to go to recruiting showcase in the fall, or their skills aren't as good as they need to be when you watch them? What are your guys' thoughts there?
I think TK made an awesome point earlier about how she's always keeping her eyes open for that athlete out there. I think the Division III philosophy is one that generally supports the multi-sport athlete. For our team specifically, we have a handful of dual sport athletes now. Last year, I think we had 9 dual sport athletes. So though they're missing out on that off-season training, they're getting so much more out of that second sport. They're having quality level competition. They're staying in shape. They're learning what it means to be a team member, to be a leader. So those are all things that you cannot gain from those off-season, fall tournaments or whatever the case. So we are in support of the multiple sport athlete.
What are your thoughts on that, Coach Cooke?
Well, I used to be the field hockey and lacrosse coach here, so I probably had at least a half dozen field hockey lacrosse players. But honestly, in general, in looking at high school players, I think the only drawback that I would see, and again it's minor, is just you have to be something that that Bob had mentioned early on was just, I mean, in the recruiting process is trying to find the time and make the time to visit schools, because if you are in, if you're in season during the fall, that starts in the middle of August, and there might be a 1 week or a 2 week window or no break whatsoever before your basketball season starts, and so you have to have really good time management skills, and then you also have to you got to be a little bit flexible. I mean, some of the kids that we had visit over break, there was nobody here, so I mean, it's like, luckily our college president was here, and he said, "Hey, just imagine this place with a whole bunch of people running around doing a lot of crazy things." So I mean, you just have to kind of sometimes use your imagination if the schools, or if you are not able to visit when a school might be in session. So that, again, it's minor though, because again, kids, I think the kids, especially those 2 and 3 sport athletes, they're resilient. I mean, they get it, they understand it. So again, I would not recruit a kid because they're a 2 or 3 sport athlete. If anything, it's going to help them.
Great. Coach TK, quick question as it relates to like the intangible qualities of an athlete. You mentioned earlier how you like to see, grit, for example, in a highlight video. What are some other ways that you evaluate the intangibles in an athlete as they move through the process?
Sure. I think resilience is a great one. I think when we go out to a field and we're watching a player, I'm looking to see how they rebound off of a good play, a bad play, how they support a teammate. I watch them walk off a field and kind of see how they interact with the sideline, and when a coach is giving them feedback, what's the reaction? Can they handle it? Do they rebound off of criticism? Or do they try whatever the coach was saying? Sometimes I'll go right behind the bench so I can kind of learn that, not to be annoying, and sometimes I wish I didn't even have my college on so that they didn't get nervous about that. I just want to learn the inside of a player. But I think, all those little pieces, the passion, the sportsmanship, the, ability to rebound, the grit, all that comes out in those little plays that you really wouldn't see if you didn't watch them more than once.
Great.